So hey guys, this is your favorite fictional vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto was the reborn sage of the infinite force. Naruto x Bastila Shan x Ahsoka Tano, Star Wars. But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. Chapter 1. The Dimensional Fracture. The Hokage's office no longer felt like a prison to Naruto Uzumaki. After 5 years wearing the ceremonial hat and robes, he had finally learned to delegate, a skill that had not come naturally to the once hyperactive ninja. Mornin'. Sunlight streamed through the panoramic windows of the newly rebuilt tower, casting long shadows across stacks of mission reports that, for once, weren't threatening to topple. Naruto stood at the window, arms crossed over his chest, orange-trimmed white cloak billowing slightly in the breeze. At 30, his features had sharpened, jawline more defined beneath days-old stubble he hadn't bothered to shave. The whisker marks on his cheeks, legacy of the 9 tails once sealed within him, seemed more pronounced against his tanned skin. "You're doing it again," came a gentle voice from the doorway. Hinata Uzumaki stood with a knowing smile, lavender eyes soft but perceptive. She carried a stack of scrolls, her midnight blue hair swept into a practical bun that somehow still managed to look elegant. "Doing what?" Naruto asked, though the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth betrayed him. "That thing where you pretend to be contemplating village matters when you're actually sensing for disturbances." She set the scrolls down on his desk and moved to stand beside him. "The same energy fluctuation." Naruto nodded, his gaze fixed on the distant forests beyond Konoha's borders. "It's getting stronger. And stranger. It doesn't feel like chakra. Not entirely, but it's familiar somehow." He closed his eyes, extending his awareness beyond ordinary sensing techniques. "Like something I've forgotten." Since defeating Kagaya years ago and later losing Kurama, Naruto had developed sensory abilities that surpassed even the most talented sensor-type ninjas. He could detect disturbance, NCES in natural energy that others couldn't even perceive, let alone interpret. This particular anomaly had been nagging at him for weeks. "Shikamaru says I'm chasing ghosts," Naruto continued, opening his eyes. "But Sasuke sent a hawk this morning. He's detected similar fluctuations near the old Otsutsuki ruins in the Land of Iron." Hinata slipped her hand into his. Even after years of marriage, the simple contact centered him. "Then we should investigate together." He turned to face her, blue eyes meeting her pearl-white gaze. "The elders won't like the Hokage and the head of the Hyuga Sea Land both leaving the village for something that might be nothing. When has that ever stopped you?" Hinata replied with a hint of mischief that still surprised those who didn't know her well. Naruto's face broke into that fox-like grin that had never changed since childhood. "Never. I've already asked Konohamaru to cover the administrative duties." He reached for the Hokage hat and set it on the desk. "We leave in an hour. The forest canopy blurred beneath them as Naruto and Hinata moved with the effortless speed of elite shinobi. They traveled in comfortable silence, conserving energy and remaining alert. 5 hours into their journey, they crossed the border into a remote region where the Land of Fire met the Land of Waterfalls. Naruto suddenly halted on a massive branch, raising his hand in a signal that Hinata immediately recognized. She activated her Byakugan without needing to be asked, the veins around her eyes bulging slightly as her vision expanded to nearly 20 kilometers in all directions. "There," she whispered, pointing northeast. "A structure hidden beneath that rock formation. It's strange. The chakra flowing through it doesn't move like any architecture I've seen before." Naruto nodded, extending his awareness. The anomalous energy signature was strongest here, pulsing like a heartbeat but with an alien rhythm that set his nerves on edge. "Let's approach carefully. Something doesn't feel right." They descended to the forest floor, moving with deliberate stealth now. The rock formation Hinata had identified rose from the ground like gnarled fingers reaching for the sky. Ancient trees had grown around and through the stones, creating a natural camouflage that would have hidden the location from anyone without the Byakugan's penetrating vision. "There's an entrance," Hinata murmured, "beneath that fallen oak." Naruto approached the massive toppled tree, examining what appeared to be natural crevices in the rock beneath. To the untrained eye, it was nothing but shadow and stone, but his fingertips detected subtle tool marks weathered by centuries. "This is old," he said, brushing away accumulated soil. older than the village system. With careful application of chakra, Naruto pressed his palm against a particular configuration of indentations. Nothing happened at first, but then a faint blue luminescence spread from his hand through hidden channels in the rock. The ground trembled slightly as a section of stone receded, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Hinata moved closer, her Byakugan still active. The chakra pathways down there. They're not like anything I've seen. They branch and flow in patterns that shouldn't be possible. Naruto created a Rasengan, holding the swirling blue sphere aloft to illuminate their path. Stay close, he said unnecessarily. They had been fighting side by side long enough to move as a single unit. The staircase spiraled downward, carved from a black stone that absorbed rather than reflected light. The walls bore inscriptions in a language neither recognized, though something about the angular symbols tugged at Naruto's memory. The air grew increasingly dense with that strange energy. Not quite chakra, not quite natural energy, but something that seemed to exist in the space between dimensions. After descending nearly 100 meters, the staircase opened into a vast circular chamber. Naruto's Rasengan illuminated only a fraction of the space, but it was enough to reveal that they stood in a structure of incredible sophistication. The floor was inlaid with intricate patterns of metal and crystal that formed a massive, complex seal. At the chamber's center stood an altar of the same black stone, atop which rested a single object. "What is this place?" Hinata whispered, her voice carrying in the perfect acoustics of the chamber. Before Naruto could respond, hidden mechanisms activated. Lines of blue-white energy illuminated throughout the chamber, flowing through the patterns on the floor and rising to form holographic images in the air above, constellations, planets, and what appeared to be galaxies arranged in configurations neither recognized. "It's some kind of observatory," Naruto said, approaching the central altar cautiously. "But these aren't our stars." The object on the altar became visible now, a crystal pyramid about the size of his palm. Its facets capturing and refracting the blue-white light in impossible angles. As Naruto drew closer, the crystal began to pulse in sync with his heartbeat. "Naruto," Hinata said, alarm evident in her tone. "Something's coming." Multiple signatures, approaching fast from above. He nodded, having sensed them too, 5 individuals with chakra signatures unlike any he'd encountered before. "Stay alert but non-aggressive. Let's see what we're dealing with." They didn't have to wait long. The chamber entrance darkened as 5 figures descended the staircase. They wore form-fitting black armor with strange angular designs reminiscent of the inscriptions on the walls. Their faces were concealed behind masks that seemed to absorb light. Each carried a different weapon, swords, staffs, and devices Naruto couldn't identify. "Intruders in the Shrine of the Infinite Force," announced the tallest figure in a voice distorted by their mask. "Identity yourselves." Naruto stepped forward, deliberately positioning himself between the newcomers and Hinata, though he knew she needed no protection. "I am Naruto Uzumaki, 7th Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village. We detected Unasu Al energy signatures and came to investigate." The figures exchanged glances. "Impossible," said another. "The sage's bloodline was extinguished millennia ago. Yet he bears the mark," said a third, gesturing toward Naruto's face. "And the energy signature is unmistakable." The leader raised a hand for silence. "It matters not. The convergence has already begun. The shrine has awakened, which means the barriers between dimensions are weakening. If he truly carries the sage's essence, then Lord Voidus will be most interested." Naruto's eyes narrowed. The mention of the sage immediately made him think of the Sage of Six Paths. But something told him these strangers referred to a different entity altogether. "I don't know who this Lord Voidus is," Naruto said, "but I suggest you explain yourselves before this gets unpleasant." The leader laughed, a cold, mechanical sound through the mask. "Your arrogance is typical of those ignorant of the true nature of power. The infinite force transcends your primitive understanding of chakra. Allow us to demonstrate." Without warning, the 5 figures extended their hands. Instead of forming hand signs, they made gestures Naruto had never seen before. The air around them distorted as waves of invisible energy surged forward. Naruto reacted instinctively, creating a barrier of wind nature chakra that deflected the strange attack. Beside him, Hinata had already shifted into her gentle fist stance, Byakugan fully activated. Their chakra network is unlike anything I've seen, she said quickly. It's as if they're drawing energy from somewhere else entirely. The leader signaled to the others. Contain them. Lord Voidus will want the sage's descendant alive. What followed was unlike any battle Naruto had experienced. The attackers moved with impossible speed. Not through body flicker techniques but as if gravity itself bent to their will. Their weapons ignited with energy that wasn't elemental chakra but cut through Naruto's wind techniques like they were nothing. Yet for all their strange abilities, they faced the 7th Hokage and the head of the Hyuga clan, two of the most powerful shinobi alive. Naruto created Ado clones that attacked from multiple angles, gathering natural energy to enhance his speed and strength. Hinata moved with fluid precision, her gentle fist striking with pinpoint accuracy despite the attacker's unusual chakra pathways. One attacker thrust out his hand, and Naruto felt himself lifted off the ground, an invisible force constricting around his throat. Rather than panic, he closed his eyes, entering the meditative state that allowed him to connect with natural energy. The strange force holding him suddenly dissipated as he channeled sage chakra through his network. Their techniques require concentration, Naruto called to Hinata as he dropped back to the floor. Disrupt their focus and they can't maintain the effect. Hinata nodded, then executed a perfect protection of the 8 trigrams 64 palms. Her hands moving so fast they created visible chakra blades that formed a defensive sphere around her. When 2 attackers tried to penetrate it, they were thrown back with such force that their masks cracked against the far wall. The leader, seeing 2 of his team disabled, changed tactics. He reached for the crystal pyramid on the altar. If we cannot take you, then we shall send you to him. Stop, Naruto shouted, lunging forward with enhanced speed. But he was a fraction too late. The moment the leader's hand touched the crystal, the entire chamber erupted with blinding light. The seal patterns on the floor ignited with energy that rose in spiraling columns. The holographic star maps began spinning, merging and distorting as if reality itself was being rewritten. What have you done? Naruto demanded, grabbing the leader by his armor. The masked figure laughed despite being in Naruto's grip. The convergence was inevitable. You've simply accelerated what was already in motion. The dimensions are collapsing, and the Sage of the Infinite Force will return, either through you or through your destruction. Before Naruto could respond, the very air around them seemed to fracture. Cracks appeared in space itself, glowing with the same blue-white energy that illuminated the chamber. Through these fissures, Naruto glimpsed impossible scenes, strange metal cities, vast starfields. Creatures and technologies beyond anything in the 5 great nations. Naruto! Hinata cried out, reaching for him as the floor beneath them began to disintegrate into particles of light. He stretched out his hand, their fingertips nearly touching, but then reality shifted. The chamber, the attackers, and Hinata all vanished in a blinding flash. Naruto fell, himself falling through layers of existence, his consciousness stretching across what seemed like infinite space and time. His last coherent thought before darkness claimed him was of an ancient Mori that couldn't possibly be his, of a figure in white robes holding aloft 2 glowing weapons, one a spiraling sphere of pure chakra, the other a blade of contained light. Consciousness returned to Naruto in fragments, first sound, then sensation, finally sight. His eyelids felt impossibly heavy as he forced them open, squinting against harsh sunlight. 2 suns hung in an alien sky, one golden, one red. He's waking up, said a female voice, cultured, controlled, with an accent Naruto had never heard before. He tried to sit up, only to discover his limbs wouldn't respond properly. His chakra network felt scrambled, as if the pathways had been rearranged. With effort, he turned his head toward the voice. A woman knelt beside him, her expression guarded but curious. She wore fitted tan and brown robes over light armor, with a peculiar cylindrical object hanging from her belt. Her brown hair was pulled back in a practical style, revealing features that were striking in their intensity, sharp cheekbones, a defined jaw, and penetrating gray eyes that seemed to look through him rather than at him. Where? Naruto began, his throat dry and voice cracking. Where am I? Where's Hinata? The woman's brow furrowed. You're in the western dunes on Tatooine. I found you unconscious in the aftermath of an energy disturbance unlike anything I've ever encountered. She offered him a container of water. I don't know anyone named Hinata. You were alone when I found you. Naruto accepted the water, drinking deeply before trying again to sit up. This time his muscles cooperated, though his entire body protested. Tatooine. I don't know any country by that name. Not a country, the woman corrected, a planet. One rather unremarkable except for being a hive of smugglers and criminals on the outer rim. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Your confusion suggests you're very far from home. Memories flooded back. The shrine, the attackers, the crystal pyramid, the dimensional fracture. Naruto looked down at himself. His Hokage cloak was tattered and scorched, but the rest of his clothing seemed intact. He could feel his chakra beginning to stabilize, the familiar energy flowing through more naturally with each passing moment. I need to find a way back, he said, more to himself than to the woman. Hinata could be in danger. My whole village could be threatened if those masked figures. What masked figures? The woman interrupted, suddenly alert. Were they wearing dark armor, carrying unusual weapons? Naruto nodded. They called themselves servants of someone named Lord Voidus. They mentioned something about the Sage of the Infinite Force and dimensions collapsing. The woman's face paled slightly before she controlled her reaction. That's concerning. Those sound like dark side adepts. Though I've never heard of Lord Voidus. She studied him more carefully now. Who exactly are you? Your force signature is unlike anything I've encountered, and I sense no deception in you. Yet your story sounds impossible. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, 7th Hokage of Konohagakure, the village hidden in the leaves, he replied, deciding that honesty was his best approach. And I have no idea what you mean by force signature, but where I come from, we use chakra, the energy created by combining physical and spiritual energies. For a long moment, the woman was silent, seeming to debate with herself. Finally, she came to a decision. My name is Bastila Shan. I'm a Jedi Knight, though circumstances have complicated my relationship with the Order. She gestured to the cylinder at her belt. This energy you call chakra sounds remarkably similar to what we call the Force, an energy field created by all living things that binds the galaxy together. Naruto absorbed this, connecting it with what he'd heard in the shrine. The Infinite Force, a power that transcends dimensions. Could chakra and this force be the same thing, just understood differently? Bastila looked thoughtful. An intriguing theory. The ancient texts speak of the force manifesting differently across the galaxy, but different dimensions entirely. She shook her head. We shall continue this conversation somewhere less exposed. My ship is hidden in a canyon not far from here. She stood and offered her hand, which Naruto accepted, pulling himself upright. As he did, their hands remained connected a moment longer than necessary, and both felt a strange resonance, as if their respective energies recognized something in each other. Bastila withdrew her hand first, the BRIEF confusion in her eyes masked quickly by practicality. Can you walk? We should move before nightfall. Tatooine isn't forgiving after dark. Naruto tested his legs, finding them steadier than expected. I heal quickly, he explained with a small smile. Side effect of my unique circumstances. As they began walking across the desert landscape, Naruto took the opportunity to observe his surroundings more carefully. The terrain was unlike anything in the Five Nations, endless dunes of sand stretching to the horizon, punctuated occasionally by rock formations that seemed sculpted by wind rather than water. The twin suns beat down mercilessly, yet the heat felt different from the deserts he knew, drier, more absolute. You mentioned a ship, Naruto said after they had been walking for several minutes. You mean a boat? Bastila gave him a sidelong glance that suggested she was reassessing just how foreign his world must be. A starship, a vessel that travels between planets, through space. Naruto stopped walking. Space. You mean, the stars. You travel among the stars. Yes, Bastila replied simply. The galaxy contains thousands of inhabited worlds, united, at least in theory, under the Galactic Republic. Though the Sith Empire has complicated that unity considerably in recent years. The implications staggered Naruto. His world, the elemental nations, the moon where Kagaya had been sealed. Perhaps even the dimensions where the Otsutsuki originated, might be just tiny fragments in a vast cosmos he'd never imagined. These Sith, he said, resuming their trek, they're enemies of your Jedi. Bastila's expression darkened. The Sith embrace the dark side of the Force, using anger, fear, and aggression to gain power. The Jedi serve the light side, seeking knowledge and defense rather than dominance. She paused. Though I've learned that the division isn't always as clear as the Order teaches. Something in her tone, a hint of personal pain, made Naruto study her more carefully. He recognized the look of someone who had faced their own darkness and emerged changed by the experience. It was a look he'd seen in Sasuke's eyes, in Gaara's, and sometimes in his own reflection. In my world, Naruto said, we learn that light and shadow are necessary counterparts. One defines the other. The strongest shinobi acknowledge their darkness without being consumed by it. Bastila gave him a sharp look. That philosophy would be considered dangerous by many Jedi. The Council teaches that the dark side is a corruption to be resisted at all costs. And what do you believe? Naruto asked. Before she could answer, Bastila suddenly tensed, her hand moving to the cylinder at her belt. We're being watched, she whispered. Sand people. Tusken Raiders. They're territorial and extremely dangerous. Naruto extended his senses, detecting multiple presences concealed among the rocks ahead. Their chakra, or force, he supposed, signatures were unfamiliar but unmistakably hostile. How many? At least a dozen, Bastila replied, impressed by his awareness. They've surrounded us. Normally I'd try to avoid conflict, but they rarely allow intruders to retreat peacefully. Naruto rolled his shoulders, a familiar rush of pre-battle focus settling over him. Then we make our position clear. I'd rather not hurt them if they're just protecting their territory, but I'm not in a position to waste time either. Before Bastila could respond, Naruto formed a familiar hand sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu. In multiple puffs of smoke, 20 perfect duplicates of Naruto appeared, surrounding them in a protective formation. Bastila's eyes widened in shock. Clearly, this ability was as foreign to her as starships were to him. What manner of force technique is that? She demanded. Those aren't illusions, they have physical substance. Explanations later, Naruto said with a grin that hadn't changed since his genin days. Right now, let's convince our friends to seek easier targets. The effect of the shadow clone's appearance was immediate. From hidden positions among the rocks, figures wrapped in dusty bandages and wearing masks with metal cylinders emerged, brandishing primitive but deadly-looking weapons. They hesitated at the sight of the multiple Narutos, communicating with each other through guttural sounds. Bastila recovered from her surprise quickly, drawing and activating her cylinder. A beam of golden energy extended from it with a distinctive hum, a blade made of contained light, exactly like the one Naruto had glimpsed in that not-quite memory before losing consciousness. A lightsaber, she explained, noting his interest. The weapon of a Jedi. The raiders attacked with surprising coordination, clearly experienced in desert ambushes. Several fired projectile weapons while others charged with clubs studded with wicked-looking spikes. Naruto's clones intercepted them, demonstrating taijutsu skills that seemed to confuse the CKERS, fighting styles they'd clearly never encountered. Bastila moved with fluid grace, her lightsaber deflecting projectiles and discouraging attackers without killing them. Her fighting style was economical and precise, utilizing the momentum of her opponents against them. Naruto recognized elements of form similar to the gentle fist style, though with dramatic differences in execution. Working together, they created an effective defense. Naruto's clones herded the attackers toward Bastila, who disabled their weapons with precise lightsaber strikes. Within minutes, the raiders realized they were outmatched. Their leader made a series of harsh vocal commands, and the group retreated into the desert. As the last attacker disappeared from view, Naruto dispelled his shadow clones, the X's chakra returning to him in a rush of information. Bastila deactivated her lightsaber but kept it in hand, watching him with new interest. Those weren't illusions or force projections, she said. Each one was physically real and acted independently. How is that possible? Naruto shrugged. Shadow Clone Jutsu. It's a technique that divides the user's chakra equally among physical duplicates. When they disperse, their experiences return to the original. He grinned. It was my signature technique as a kid, though back then I could make 1,000 at once. Bastila stared at him. 1,000. The concentration required to control that many independent duplicates would be. Actually, they control themselves, Naruto clarified. They're all me, just separate versions. Great for our Econisants are overwhelming enemies with numbers. Terrible for my academy teacher's blood pressure. Despite herself, Bastila's lips curved in a small smile. I can imagine. The Jedi Council would have a collective seizure if presented with a youngling capable of such techniques. She clipped her lightsaber back to her belt. We should continue. That encounter will have attracted attention we'd prefer to avoid. They resumed their journey, now moving at a faster pace. As they walked, Naruto found himself studying Bastila more carefully. Her movements were efficient and deliberate, suggesting years of disciplined training. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced terrible challenges and survived, though there was also a guarded quality to her, as if she held herself apart from the world around her. You never answered my question, Naruto said after they had been walking in silence for some time. About light and darkness. What do you believe? Bastila was quiet for so long that Naruto thought she might ignore the question entirely. Finally, she spoke, her voice softer than before. I believe that the Jedi teachings contain wisdom, but also dogma. I believe that understanding darkness is necessary to truly choose light. She glanced at him. I believe this because I have experienced both. I fell to the dark side once. Was captured by a Sith Lord named Darth Malak and broken through torture until I embraced the very power I had been taught to fear. The admission clearly cost her, but Naruto sensed she needed to speak the words aloud, perhaps to gauge his reaction. To see if he would judge her as others had. In my world, he replied carefully, there was a time when I was feared and hated because I contained a creature of immense destructive power, a nine-tailed fox demon that had nearly destroyed my village. People saw the demon, not the child struggling to contain it. It took years for me to prove I was more than the darkness I harbored. Bastila's steps faltered slightly before she regained her composure. And now, this demon is gone. Naruto nodded, a faint sadness touching his features. Kurama. That was his name, sacrificed himself to save me and the village during our last great war. We had become friends, eventually. Partners. His loss still feels like missing a limb sometimes. I'm sorry, Bastila said, and meant it. The Jedi teach that attachment leads to suffering, but I've found that the absence of connection brings its own kind of pain. They crested a dune, and Naruto saw their destination, a narrow canyon cutting through the desert floor, its shadows promising relief from the relentless suns. As they descended toward it, Bastila continued, the man who saved me from the dark side, Revan, believe. That true strength comes from understanding both aspects of the Force. The Jedi Council disagreed. They redeemed him by erasing his memories, his identity. Naruto stopped walking, genuine shock on his face. They did what? How is that redemption? That's, he struggled to find words strong enough. That's violating everything that makes a person who they are. Bastila's expression was complicated. Agreement mixed with old loyalty, anger tempered by understanding. The Jedi fear what they don't understand. Revan was too powerful, too charismatic, too willing to challenge their dogma. In their minds, the only way to save him was to unmake him. And you, what did you think of their solution? Naruto asked. I participated in it, Bastila admitted quietly. I believed I was saving him. It wasn't until later, when I faced my own fall and redemption, that I understood the magnitude of what we had done. She met his gaze directly. I've spent years trying to atone for that decision, among others. They had reached the canyon entrance. Bastila led him through a winding path between towering rock walls until they emerged in a small open area where a sleek vessel rested, clearly the starship she had mentioned. Its metallic surface reflected the fading sunlight, its design suggesting both speed and elegance. The Aben Hawk, Bastila said, approaching a ramp that lowered at her gesture. She's gotten me out of more impossible situations than I can count. Naruto stared at the ship with undisguised wonder. The technology of his world included radios, trains, and the occasional computer. But nothing approaching this level of sophistication. And this can truly travel between stars. Bastila nodded, a hint of amusement breaking through her usually controlled expression. complete with hyperspace capabilities for faster-than-light travel. Otherwise, journeys between systems would take lifetimes. As they ascended the ramp into the ship, Naruto felt a strange resonance. Not unlike what he'd experienced in the ancient shrine. The vessel hummed with energy that wasn't quite mechanical, as if it possessed its own form of consciousness. The interior was larger than he'd expected, with curved corridors leading to multiple compartments. Bastila guided him to what appeared to be a central gathering area with a holographic display in the center. "We should be safe here while we determine our next steps," she said, gesturing for him to sit at a curved bench surrounding a circular table. "The ship's systems will alert us to any approach." Naruto sat, wincing slightly as his muscles protested. The dimensional transition had taken more out of him than he'd realized. "My priority has to be finding a way back to my world, and finding Hinata. If that crystal in the shrine created a pathway between dimensions, there must be a way to reverse the process." Bastila accessed the ship's computer, bringing up displays that Naruto couldn't begin to comprehend. The energy surge that preceded your arrival registered on sensors across this sector. If similar events are occurring elsewhere, we might be able to track them. She gave him a sidelong glance. "But first, I need to understand more about you and this chakra you wield. Knowledge is our most valuable resource right now." Naruto nodded, then closed his eyes, concentrating on his internal energy. After a moment, he extended his hand, palm up. A small Rasengan formed above it, a swirling sphere of compressed chakra that illuminated the compartment with blue-white light. "This is pure chakra manipulation," he explained. "No elemental nature added, just raw energy shaped and contained through precise control." He allowed the technique to dissipate. "In my world, shinobi learn to harness chakra through years of training. Molding it for various techniques, ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu." Bastila watched with fascination. The similarity to force techniques is remarkable, yet the methodology seems entirely different. Jedi focus on connecting with the force around them, letting it flow through them rather than generating it internally. She stood and moved to the center of the room. With a gesture, several small objects, cups, tools, data cards, rose into the air, orbiting around her in perfect harmony. Telekinesis is one of the first abilities a Jedi Padawan masters. The Force exists in all things, connecting them. We learn to recognize and influence those connections. Naruto whistled appreciatively. "That would be considered an advanced technique where I'm from. Only shinobi with specialized abilities or exceptional chakra control can manipulate objects without direct contact." He thought of Gaara's sand techniques, or the Yamanaka clan's mind transfer abilities. "Though we have their specialties that might seem equally impressive to you." As they continued comparing their respective abilities, a pattern began to emerge. What Jedi called the Force and what shinobi knew as Chakra shared fundamental properties but were approached from almost opposite philosophical frameworks. Where Jedi sought harmony with an external energy field, shinobi developed internal energy through rigorous training and precise control. "It's like looking at the same mountain from opposite sides," Naruto mused. "The mountain is the same, but the path and perspective are completely different." Bastila nodded slowly. "And this, sage of the infinite force, that your attackers mentioned, perhaps someone who once understood both approaches." She pulled up historical archives on the ship's computer. The most ancient Jedi texts mention a figure called the One Who Walks Between Worlds, said to have understood the Force on a level no one before or since has achieved. Naruto felt a chill run down his spine. "In my world, we have legends of the Sage of Six Paths, the first to understand and use chakra, who saved the world from a primordial threat." He remembered the vision memory he'd experienced during the dimensional transition. What if they're the same person, or at least connected somehow? Before Bastila could respond, an alarm sounded from the ship's console. Her expression shifted instantly from scholarly interest to combat readiness. "We've got incoming. A ship just dropped out of hyperspace in orbit. The energy signature matches Sith design." Naruto was on his feet immediately. "The masked attackers." "Possibly," Bastila said, moving quickly to the cockpit with Naruto following. "Are others serving this, Lord Voidus? Either way, we should assume they're looking for you." The cockpit was compact but functional, with the pilot and co-pilot seats surrounded by instruments and displays Naruto couldn't begin to interpret. Through the forward viewport, he could see the darkening sky as Tatooine's twin suns set below the horizon. "Can they track us here?" he asked, watching as Bastila's hands moved over the controls with practiced efficiency. "Not precisely, but they'll detect the Hawk if they conduct a thorough scan," she replied. "We have two options: try to outrun them, or remain hidden and hope they search elsewhere first." Naruto considered their situation. "If they're looking for me, running might just confirm my presence. And if these dimensional fractures are occurring in multiple locations, we need more information before deciding where to go." He met Bastila's gaze. "I vote we stay hidden, gather intelligence, and prepare for confrontation if necessary." Bastila studied him, a new respect in her expression. A surprisingly patient approach. "I had you assessed as more impulsive." Naruto laughed softly. "Oh, I was legendary for it, actually. But 5 years as Hokage teaches even the most hard-headed shinobi the value of strategy." His expression turned serious. "Though I still prefer direct action when the situation calls for it." "A balanced approach," Bastila agreed. "Very well. I'll power down all non-essential systems and engage the ship's stealth protocols. If they land search parties, we'll need to remain undetected until they pass." As Bastila worked, Naruto returned to the main compartment, his mind racing with implications. Dimensional barriers collapsing, worlds with technologies beyond anything in the elemental nations, enemies pursuing him across realities, and at the center of it all, this mysterious connection to a figure called the Sage of the Infinite Force. Most concerning was Hinata's fate. Had she been pulled into this same world, or another dimension entirely? Was she safe, or in the hands of Sith, that Bastila spoke of with such caution? Naruto closed his eyes, centering himself. Panic and worry wouldn't help him find answers. Instead, he settled into a meditative posture, reaching out with his senses in a way he hadn't attempted since losing Kurama. If chakra and the force were indeed manifestations of the same energy, perhaps he could adapt his sensory abilities to this new reality. He felt Bastila return before he heard her presence in the force chakra field distinct and powerful. She observed him silently for a moment before speaking. "You're meditating," she said, not a question but an observation. Jedi practice similar techniques to center themselves and connect more deeply with the force. Naruto opened his eyes. "I was trying to sense Hinata, my wife, but this world feels different. The energy doesn't respond the same way." Bastila sat across from him. "The force is strongest in living things. If your wife is in this dimension, she would create ripples. Especially if her energy signature is as distinct as yours." She hesitated, then offered, "I could teach you Jedi meditation techniques. They might help you adapt your abilities to this environment." "I'd appreciate that," Naruto said sincerely, "and in return, I could show you some shinobi techniques. Your lightsaber reminds me of wind nature chakra manipulation. I think you might have an affinity for it." A small smile touched Bastila's lips. An exchange of knowledge across dimensions. The Jedi Council would be simultaneously fascinated and horrified. "The best ideas often have that effect," Naruto replied with a grin. Their moment of connection was interrupted by another alarm from the cockpit, this one more urgent than the last. They rushed back to the controls, where a new alert displayed on the main screen. "They're landing," Bastila said grimly, pointing to a blinking indicator. "Less than 5 kilometers from our position. And they're deploying search parties with energy detection equipment." Naruto's expression hardened. So much for remaining undetected. Bastila quickly assessed their options. The Hawk's stealth systems are good, but not perfect. If they me this way with specialized detection gear, they'll find us. Then we need a distraction, Naruto decided. Something to draw them in another direction while we gather what we need and determine our next move. He formed a familiar hand sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 2 clones appeared beside him. Unlike the larger group he'd created during the Raider attack, these were formed with greater precision and given a specific mission. Create a chakra signature similar to mine about 10 kilometers north, Naruto instructed them. Make it obvious but not too obvious, like I'm trying to hide but doing a poor job of it. Lead them away from the canyon, but don't engage directly unless absolutely necessary. The clones nodded and immediately departed, understanding their creator's intentions perfectly. Bastila watched the exchange with interest. Your duplicates retain your intelligence and can act independently over considerable distances. They are me, Naruto explained. Just temporarily separated. Everything they experience, I'll know when they disperse, though the feedback can be disorienting if too many disperse at once. He turned to her. While they're creating a diversion, we need to figure out where to go next. These dimensional fractures, if they're appearing in multiple locations, maybe one of them could lead me back to my world. Bastila activated the ship's long-range sensors. The energy surge that coincided with your arrival had a distinctive signature. If similar phenomena are occurring elsewhere, she adjusted several settings, then pointed to the display. There, 3 similar energy patterns detected in the past standard week. One in the Alderaan system, another near Dantooine, and a third in the unknown regions. Any way to tell which might connect to my world? Naruto asked. Bastila shook her head. Not without more data, but the fact that these events are increasing in frequency suggests the dimensional barriers are continuing to weaken. Your arrival may have been just the beginning. Naruto's expression grew troubled. The shrine attackers said something about convergence and dimensions collapsing. What if these fractures are symptoms of a larger problem? A problem that this Lord Voidus intends to exploit, Bastila added. We need more information. About him. About these dimensional fractures, and about your connection to the Sage of the Infinite Force. She accessed another section of the ship's database. There's a Jedi archive on Dantooine that might contain historical records about the ancient sage. And if another energy surge occurred there recently. 2 objectives align, Naruto nodded. It's a starting point, at least. Suddenly, he tensed, his awareness shifting to one of his shadow clones. Through their shared connection, he saw a group of black armored figures, similar to those from the shrine but with subtle differences in their equipment. They were following the clone's false trail, using devices that seemed to track energy signatures. They took the bait, Naruto reported. But they're moving faster than expected. We probably have less than an hour before they realize they're following a decoy. Bastila was already powering up the Hawk's systems. Then we leave immediately. Dantooine is several days' journey even with hyperspace. We'll need to break atmosphere while their attention is diverted. As the ship hummed to life around them, Naruto took one last look at the desert landscape through the viewport. Somewhere out there, across dimensions he didn't understand, Hinata was searching for him just as desperately as he was searching for her. He could feel it with certainty that transcended rational thought. I'll find you, he whispered. No matter what dimension you're in. The Aben Hawk rose from its hiding place. Thrusters glowing blue against the night sky as it ascended toward the stars. Inside, Naruto Uzumaki, 7th Hokage, Jinchuriki, and possible reincarnation of a being who understood the fundamental energy of multiple universes, prepared himself for a journey beyond anything he could have imagined. And somewhere in the cosmic weave that connected all realities, ancient forces stirred in response to his awakening power, some seeking to guide him, others to destroy him, all recognizing that the boundaries between worlds would never be the same again. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Awakening Legacy. Hyperspace enveloped the Aben Hawk in luminous blue streaks that defied conventional understanding of motion and time. Naruto stood transfixed before the cockpit viewport, mesmerized by the impossible physics unfolding before him. Even after everything he'd witnessed in his life, giant chakra beasts, reincarnated warriors, an alien goddess bent on planetary consumption. The casual way this vessel slipped between stars left him humbled. First time seeing hyperspace? Bastila asked, a hint of amusement coloring her normally reserved tone. Naruto nodded without turning. In my world, the most advanced transportation we have is trains. Even our fastest shinobi can only cover a few hundred kilometers in a day. He pressed his palm against the transparasteel, feeling the subtle vibration of the ship's systems. And here we are, crossing what you call light years, in days. Technology and the Force have evolved together over millennia, Bastila explained, checking the navigation system. Though the Infinite Empire achieved far more before collapsing, some of their technology remains incomprehensible even to our most brilliant scientists. Naruto finally turned from the viewport, studying his unexpected companion more carefully. In the ship's artificial lighting, Bastila's features appeared sharper, the subtle tension around her eyes more pronounced. Though she maintained perfect composure, he sensed something beneath the disciplined exterior, a vigilance born of hard experience. "You mentioned this place we're going, Dantoing. What should I expect?" Bastila's fingers danced across the control panel, bringing up a holographic display of a verdant world. A remote agricultural planet, sparsely populated. The Jedi enclave there was attacked during the Jedi Civil War, but portions of the archives remained intact. Her expression darkened momentarily. "I trained there as a Padawan, before." She left the sentence unfinished, but Naruto understood. Before her capture, before her fall to what she called the dark side. "You don't have to talk about it," he offered. "It's relevant to our situation," she countered with pragmatic efficiency. "My experience with the dark side makes me more sensitive to its presence. And whatever is happening with these dimensional fractures, I sense the dark side's influence." The ship's computer signaled an automated navigational adjustment, momentarily bathing the cockpit in amber light. Bastila rose, gesturing for Naruto to follow. "We have 3 days in hyperspace. Time enough to prepare, and for you to learn more about where you've landed." They moved to the main hold where a circular holographic projector dominated the central table. With practiced gestures, Bastila activated the device, bringing up a 3-dimensional map of spiral arms dotted with countless stars. "The galaxy," she explained. "Over 100 billion stars, millions of inhabited worlds spanning the core to the outer rim." She manipulated the display, zooming in on a particular section. "We're currently here, traveling from Tatooine to Dantoing, both in the outer rim." Naruto absorbed the scale with quiet amazement. The 5 great nations that had seemed so vast when he was younger now appeared microscopic by comparison. Even the dimensional realms he'd encountered through the years, Kagaya's ice dimension, the pure land where he'd met his parents, felt limited beside this expanse of reality. "And the Sith?" he asked. "The ones following us, what do they want?" Bastila's expression grew guarded. "The Sith have existed for millennia, though their form changes. They seek power through passion and emotion, embracing what the Jedi reject." She adjusted the display again, showing historical records. "Traditionally, they're led by Sith lords who command vast military forces. But these agents who attacked you don't match current Sith patterns." Their leader mentioned serving someone called Lord Voidus, Naruto recalled. "And something about the Sage of the Infinite Force." Bastila nodded. "I've accessed every historical database available through the Hawks systems. The name, Voidus, doesn't appear in any recorded history, Jedi, Sith, or Republic. But there are scattered references to the Sage in the most ancient texts." She brought up fragmentary records, ancient scripts in languages Naruto couldn't decipher. One image caught his attention, a stylized figure holding dual weapons, a spiraling sphere in one hand and a blade of light in the other. "That's what I saw," Naruto said, pointing to the image. "In that vision when I was transitioning between dimensions. Those exact weapons." Bastila zoomed in on the image. According to the partial translation, this depicts the one who walks between worlds, also called the Sage of Perfect Balance. The text suggests he could channel energy in ways lost to both Jedi and Sith, neither light nor dark, but something transcending both. Naruto studied the ancient depiction, feeling an inexplicable familiarity. The spiral weapon resembled his Rasengan, while the blade of light was clearly a lightsaber like Bastila's. Yet the figure wielded both simultaneously, something that should be impossible according to either of their traditions. "That masked attacker called me the Sage's descendant," Naruto said thoughtfully. "But it felt more direct than that, like." He struggled to articulate the sensation. "Like remembering something I'd forgotten, not learning something new." Bastila's gaze sharpened with interest. Ncar Nation is acknowledged within both Jedi and Sith philosophies, though rarely discussed. Some believe the Force occasionally re-embodies certain souls when their presence is needed. She hesitated, then asked, "Does your world have similar concepts?" Naruto laughed softly, the sound tinged with irony. "My entire generation was shaped by reincarnation. My friend Sasuke and I carried the Reborn souls of brothers who had fought for centuries. My teacher was the reincarnation of a legendary sage." He shook his head. "After a while, you stop being surprised." And yet this surprises you, Bastila observed perceptively. Because it's different, Naruto replied, his voice quieter now. Those others were from my world's history. This, he gestured to the holographic figure. This connects to something beyond my world entirely. If I'm somehow linked to this sage, then the barriers between our dimensions have been broken before. The implication hung between them. What had happened to say? Create these dimensions in the first place, and why was it happening again now? We should focus on practical matters, Bastila suggested, sensing his discomfort. If you truly carry the sage's essence, you may be able to access abilities beyond traditional force techniques or your chakra methods. Naruto considered this. I've always been able to adapt quickly in battle. My chakra has unusual properties, even among Jinchuriki. Jinchuriki, Bastila attempted, the unfamiliar word awkward on her tongue. People who contain tailed beasts, massive chakra entities, Naruto explained. I housed the 9 tails, Kurama. From birth until his death protecting our village. A shadow of old grief crossed his features. My chakra was always different because of that connection, more abundant, more resilient. Even after losing him, I retained some of those qualities. Perhaps that's why you were able to survive the dimensional transition, Bastila theorized. Your energy adapted where others might have been destroyed. She deactivated the holographic display. We should test your abilities, see how your chakra interacts with the force in this dimension. The cargo hold should provide enough space. The cargo hold was a large, open area occupying much of the Hawk's lower level. Crates and equipment had been secured along the walls, leaving the central floor clear. Bastila had removed her outer robe, standing now in her lighter undertunic and fitted trousers, lightsaber in hand but unactivated. The foundation of Jedi training is connecting with the force around you, she explained. Her tone shifting subtly into that of an instructor. Not commanding it, but allowing it to flow through you, guide your actions. Naruto stood opposite her, having shed his tattered Hokage cloak. In his standard black and orange combat attire, he looked more like the young man who'd fought in the 4th Shinobi War than the village leader he'd become. That's almost the opposite of how we approach chakra, he noted. We're taught precise control, molding and shaping our internal energy through concentration and hand signs. Bastila nodded. Different paths, perhaps to the same destination. The force exists in all things, connecting them. Reach out with your senses, not pushing outward as I suspect you do with chakra, but opening yourself to what already surrounds you. Naruto closed his eyes, attempting to follow her instruction. For decades, his approach to sensing had been active, extending his awareness like sonar. Now, he tried to invert that process, becoming receptive rather than projective. At first, there was nothing but the familiar hum of his own chakra circulating through well-worn pathways. Then, gradually, he became aware of something else, a vast, pervasive energy field that seemed to permeate everything. It flowed through him, through Bastila, through the very atoms of the ship, connecting all in subtle patterns. I can feel it, he said quietly, eyes still closed. It's like natural energy when I'm in sage mode, but different. More fluid, less structured. That's the force, Bastila confirmed, her voice sounding distant through his enhanced perception. Now, try to interact with it, not by forcing your will upon it, but by harmonizing your intentions with its flow. Naruto focused on a small crate across the hold. In his world, moving an object without contact would require specific techniques, shadow possession like the Nara clan used, or complex fuinjutsu arrays. Here, he tried to feel the connections between himself, the force, and the object. The crate trembled slightly but remained in place. Your approach is still too aggressive, Bastila observed. You're trying to command rather than request. She stepped closer, her presence in the force brilliant and disciplined. May I? At his nod, she placed her hands lightly on his shoulders from behind. The contact sent an unexpected current between them, not unpleasant, but startlingly intimate. Naruto felt her presence in the force align with his own, creating a resonance. Feel how I connect, she instructed, her voice close to his ear. There is no separation between myself and that object. The force flows through both equally. Through their connection, Naruto sensed her approach, the subtle shift in perception that allowed her to influence rather than control. The crate rose smoothly from the floor, hovering a meter in the air. "Now you try," she said, stepping back and breaking the physical connection, though some resonance lingered between them. Naruto focused again, this time emulating her approach. Instead of projecting his chakra or will, he allowed his awareness to extend through the force, recognizing the crate as an extension of the same energy that flowed through him. The crate wobbled, then slowly rose. "I'm doing it," he said with a note of wonder, then immediately lost concentration as his excitement disrupted the delicate connection. The crate clattered back to the floor. Bastila's lips curved in a small smile. Impressive for a first attempt. Many Padawans require weeks to achieve even that much. "It's completely different from chakra manipulation," Naruto said, turning to face her. "But there's something familiar about it too, like..." He paused, struggling to articulate the sensation. "Like remembering a skill from a dream. Perhaps the sage's memories influencing yours," Bastila suggested. "Now, let's try something different. Show me one of your chakra techniques, something distinctive to your tradition." Naruto nodded, then formed a familiar hand sign. "Shadow Clone Jutsu." In a puff of smoke, a perfect duplicate appeared beside him. Bastila studied the clone with undisguised fascination, circling it slowly. "Remarkable," she murmured. "Not a force illusion, but a complete physical manifestation with its own force signature." She glanced at Naruto. "This would be considered impossible by conventional force understanding. It divides my chakra equally between us," Naruto explained. "The clone is independent but connected to me. Can you sense the force while maintaining the clone?" Bastila asked. Naruto nodded, closing his eyes again to extend his awareness. This time, he noticed something unexpected. The clone wasn't just containing half his chakra, it was actively drawing on the ambient force energy around them, establishing its own connections. "Something's different," he said, opening his eyes. "The clone is interacting with the force independently, not just using the chakra I gave it." Bastila's expression grew thoughtful. "Perhaps your chakra techniques naturally adapt to the force when used in this dimension. Try combining your awareness of both energies simultaneously." Naruto dispelled the clone, then centered himself. This time, he didn't separate his approaches. Instead, he allowed his chakra to flow outward while simultaneously opening himself to the force flowing inward. The opposing currents met within him, creating a strange resonance. Energy began to manifest around his hand. Not the pure blue-white of his Rasengan, nor the controlled golden glow of Bastila's lightsaber. But something between. A spiraling sphere with threads of light extending outward like solar flares. "What is that?" Bastila breathed, taking an involuntary step back. "I don't know," Naruto admitted, staring at the technique forming almost instinctively in his palm. "It's like a Rasengan, but more." The energy sphere pulsed, growing brighter. Naruto could feel it drawing on both his internal chakra and the external force simultaneously, creating something greater than either alone. The sensation was exhilarating but dangerous, like holding a miniature star that threatened to expand beyond his control. With careful concentration, he dispersed the technique, releasing the energy safely back into the environment. His hand tingled with residual power. "That," Bastila said after a moment of silence, "was not a standard force technique. Nor a standard chakra technique," Naruto agreed. "It felt ancient, like I was remembering rather than creating." Bastila's expression grew more serious. "If you truly carry the sage's essence, your presence in this dimension may be awakening abilities that have been dormant for millennia. Abilities that neither Jedi nor Sith understand. Which explains why this Lord Voidus wants to find me," Naruto concluded. "Either to harness these abilities or prevent their re-emergence." Their training session continued for hours, exploring the boundaries between chakra and force techniques. Naruto discovered that his shadow clones could learn force techniques independently, accelerating his progress. Bastila found that by observing his chakra manipulation, she could refine her own force control in subtle ways that traditional Jedi training had never addressed. By the time they returned to the main hold, exhausted but exhilarated, a new level of mutual respect had formed between them. "Your adaptability is remarkable," Bastila said as they shared a meal of synthesized protein and hydration packs, unappetizing but nutritious. "Most force users spend decades mastering a single approach. You're integrating entirely new concepts in hours. Naruto shrugged, though the compliment pleased him. I've always learned best through doing rather than studying. Drove my academy teachers crazy. He grinned at the memory, then sobered. Plus, I have powerful motivation. Hinata is out there somewhere, maybe in danger. And my Yaj could be threatened by these dimensional fractures. Bastila studied him thoughtfully. Tell me about her, your wife. The question surprised him, but Naruto welcomed the opportunity to speak about Hinata. As if doing so might somehow help him find her. She's incredible. Quiet strength, unwavering loyalty. She saw worth in me when everyone else saw only the demon I contained. A soft smile touched his features. Her eyes can see through anything, literally, with her Byakugan, but what always mattered was how she saw me. You miss her deeply, Bastila observed, her tone softening. Every minute, Naruto admitted. We've been separated before during missions, but this is different. I don't even know if she's in the same dimension. He looked directly at Bastila. What about you? Is there someone waiting for your return? Something flickered in her gray eyes, a complex emotion quickly mastered. No, Jedi traditionally avoid attachments, and my history has made personal connections complicated. Because of your fall to the dark side? Naruto asked directly. Bastila tensed visibly before forcing herself to relax. Partly. After Revan helped me return to the light, we were close for a time. But the council separated us, believing our connection too dangerous. She focused on adjusting her sleeve, avoiding his gaze. He eventually left known space, searching for answers about the true Sith Empire. I chose to remain, to help rebuild what had been broken in the war. The carefully neutral tone couldn't quite mask the old pain beneath. Naruto recognized the ND of someone who had made difficult choices and lived with the consequences. Sounds like your council and my village elders would get along, he said lightly. They're always worried about powerful shinobi forming attachments too. They nearly had heart attacks when I married the Hyuga clan heiress. His attempt at levity earned a small smile from Bastila. The fear isn't entirely irrational. Power and passion can be a volatile combination. She looked up, meeting his gaze directly now. But isolation creates its own dangers. The Jedi's greatest failures have often come from their inability to understand the emotions they so rigidly suppress. Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from the cockpit. Bastila rose immediately, moving with the fluid grace that spoke of lifetime combat training. Naruto followed as they returned to the ship's control center. Something's following us through hyperspace, Bastila explained, scanning the displays. That should be impossible without a tracking device. Could they have planted one while we were on Tatooine? Naruto asked, studying the incomprehensible data streams. Bastila shook her head. The Hawk runs automated scans for such devices. And hyperspace tracking technology doesn't exist, at least not in any known form. Her brow furrowed as she analyzed the readings. Unless they're tracking me, Naruto finished the thought. Something about my energy signature. The dimensional fracture that brought you here left traces, Bastila theorized, fingers flying over the controls. If they can detect those traces, then they can follow us wherever we go, Naruto concluded grimly. So running isn't an option. Bastila's expression hardened with resolve. We need to reach Dantooine before they intercept us. The ancient ruins there might contain information about how to mask your energy signature. She adjusted their course slightly. I'm going to push the hyperdrive beyond recommended parameters. It's risky, but it should get us there 12 hours sooner. The ship's engines increased in pitch, the blue streaks of hyperspace outside the viewport intensifying. Naruto felt the subtle shift as the vessel strained against physics itself. Will we make it? He asked. If the motivators hold, Bastila replied with grim determination. And if they don't? She left the sentence unfinished, but he implication was clear. They'd have bigger problems than pursuit. 9 hours later, alarms blared throughout the ship as the hyperdrive motivator began overheating. Bastila and Naruto had taken shifts monitoring the systems. And now both raced to the engine compartment where acrid smoke filled the air. The primary coupling is failing. Bastila shouted over the alarms, pulling up diagnostic screens. We need to reduce power immediately or we'll be vaporized when it ruptures. Naruto surveyed the complex machinery, recognizing the fundamental problem if not the specific components. Can we bypass it? Reroute the energy through a secondary system? Not while remaining in hyperspace, Bastila replied, already working to power down critical systems. We need to drop back to real space. But we're still hours from Dantooine. We'll be exposed. Naruto studied the overheating coupling, a metal component glowing dangerously red as superheated plasma flowed through it. An idea formed, wild but possible. What if I cool it directly? He suggested. I have wind nature chakra. If I can channel it precisely enough, I might be able to reduce the temperature without shutting down. Bastila glanced at him skeptically. The coupling operates at temperatures that would melt durasteel instantly. Any direct contact would be fatal. I don't need direct contact, Naruto replied, already forming hand signs. Just proximity. Before she could protest further, he created a shadow clone and began molding chakra with its assistance. Between his palms formed a swirling disk of wind chalk. Ra, a variation of his Rasenshuriken technique, but modified for precision cooling rather than destruction. Stand back, he warned, then carefully directed the technique toward the overheating coupling. The wind chakra encapsulated the component, creating a localized vortex that drew heat away while maintaining the integrity of the system. Temperature readings on Bastila's diagnostic panel began, dropping immediately, not to safe levels, but away from the critical threshold. It's working, she confirmed, surprise evident in her voice. But can you maintain it long enough for us to reach Dantooine? Naruto's face showed the strain of precise chakra control. Not continuously, but maybe in rotation with shadow clones. Each can maintain the technique for about 15 minutes before dispelling from chakra exhaustion. For the next 3 hours, Naruto and his continuously refreshed shadow clones worked in precise coordination, each maintaining the cooling technique until nearly depleted, then dispersing as another took over. Bastila monitored the systems, making minute adjustments to maximize efficiency while minimizing strain on the damaged coupling. Their unlikely partnership produced results that neither could have achieved alone. Naruto's raw power and innovative techniques combined with Bastila's technical knowledge and precise control. When the ship finally reverted to real space in the Dantooine system, both were exhausted but triumphant. The verdant planet filled the viewport, rolling plains and scattered settlements visible even from orbit. We made it, Bastila said, running a hand through her disheveled hair. That was impressive improvisation. Naruto, slumped in the co-pilot's chair after dispelling his final clone, managed a tired smile. One thing growing up with unreliable equipment, you get good at unorthodox repairs. Their moment of relief was short-lived. The ship's sensors indicated another vessel dropping out of hyperspace behind them, a black, angular craft with a design that made Bastila's expression darken. Sith Interceptor, she identified grimly. Advanced model, heavily armed. They followed us despite our efforts. Naruto straightened in his seat. Can we outrun them to the surface? Not with our damaged hyperdrive, Bastila replied, already plotting an evasive course. But the Hawk has a few surprises. Strap in, this descent is going to be rough. She pushed the sublight engines to maximum, diving toward Dantooine's atmosphere at a steep angle that made the ship's structural integrity alarms activate. The pursuing vessel adjusted course to follow, opening fire with red energy beams that Bastila managed to evade through a series of maneuvers that defied conventional piloting. They're good, she muttered, hands dancing across the controls. Too good for standard Sith pilots. Force sensitive, Naruto guessed, holding onto his seat as the ship bucked violently. Almost certainly, Bastila confirmed. And they want you alive. Which gives us one advantage. They won't risk destroying the ship entirely. As they entered Dantooine's upper atmosphere, friction turned the viewport orange with superheated air. Bastila activated a secondary set of shields, diverting power from non-essential systems. The pursuing ship maintained its course, though its weapons fire became more selective, targeting the Hawk's engines rather than vital sections. I have an idea, Naruto said suddenly. But I need to get outside the ship. Bastila shot him an incredulous look. We're descending through atmosphere at over 3,000 kilometers per hour. Trust me, he replied with a confidence that brooked no argument. Can you get me to the dorsal hatch? Something in his expression must have convinced her. Lower level, third corridor. Emergency access ladder. The outer hatch has a safety override, code 4971. But Naruto, even with your abilities, I've survived worse, he assured her, already moving. Quote, just keep us steady for 10 seconds when I signal. The journey through the bucking, twisting ship was a challenge that would have defeated anyone with lesser physical abilities. Naruto navigated the corridors with chakra-enhanced agility, finally reaching the access ladder and climbing to the emergency hatch. After inputting the override code, he opened a secure channel on the comlink Bastila had given him. Ready. Give me 10 seconds of stable flight. Acknowledged, came her tense reply. On my mark. Now. The ship's wild evasive pattern temporarily smoothed. Naruto opened the hatch, instantly buffeted by the roaring hypersonic winds of their descent. Without hesitation, he pulled himself onto the ship's exterior, using chakra adhesion to anchor himself to the hull. The conditions were brutal, air thin but superheated, pressure differential threatening to tear him from the ship, the pursuing interceptor visible as a dark shape against the burning sky. Naruto formed a series of hand signs, gathering enormous chakra for a technique he hadn't attempted since the war. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Hundreds of shadow clones materialized around the ship, each instantly having to use chakra adhesion to avoid being swept away. Through their shared consciousness, Naruto coordinated the next phase of his plan. Transformation jutsu. Each clone transformed into a perfect replica of the Aben Hawk, creating a swarm of identical ships suddenly diverging in different directions. From the pursuer's perspective, their target had just multiplied into hundreds of identical vessels, all following different descent vectors toward Dantoin's surface. Through the comlink, Naruto heard Bastila's astonished exclamation. That's, how did you? Just pick a random course and stick to it, he instructed, fighting to maintain his position on the hull. They can't track all of us. The pursuing interceptor hesitated, its weapons systems tracking multiple targets before selecting one of the clone ships to follow. The real Aben Hawk, now free from immediate pursuit, adjusted course toward a different section of the planet. Naruto waited until they had descended to a more reasonable altitude before signaling Bastila again. I'm coming back in. The clones will maintain their disguise until impact or dispelling. Returning through the hatch was nearly as challenging as exiting had been. But soon Naruto was back in the cockpit, his clothing singed and his face wind-burned but otherwise unharmed. Bastila spared him a single glance that contained equal parts amazement and exasperation. That was either the most brilliant or most reckless tactic I've ever witnessed. Naruto grinned through his exhaustion. Usually both, according to my advisors. His expression turned more serious. Did we lose them? For now, Bastila confirmed, guiding the ship toward a vast grassland punctuated by distant hills. They followed one of your decoys toward the southern continent. We're heading for the abandoned Jedi enclave in the northern hemisphere. She adjusted their approach vector. But they'll realize their mistake soon enough. We need to work quickly once we land. Aben Hawk descended through layers of clouds into Dantoin's serene landscape. Rolling plains of tall grass stretched to the horizon, broken occasionally by stands of gnarled trees and the remnants of ancient structures. Bastila guided the ship toward a weathered complex partially reclaimed by nature, a series of stone buildings arranged around a central courtyard. The Jedi Enclave, she identified, her voice taking on a quality Naruto recognized as carefully controlled emotion. Or what's left of it. They landed in what had once been a meditation garden, now overgrown with native vegetation. As the ship's systems powered down, Bastila performed a quick diagnostic. The hyperdrive is completely burned out. We won't be leaving Dantoin until it's repaired or replaced. She rose from the pilot's seat with determined efficiency. Fortunately, this was once a significant Jedi installation. The underground archives may still contain what we need, both information about these Dimensio null fractures and possibly components for repairs. They exited the ship into Dantoin's pleasant atmosphere, warm sunshine, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of wild grasses and distant water. Under different circumstances, it would have been peaceful, even idyllic. Naruto closed his eyes briefly, extending his senses. This place, it's strong with what you call the Force. It was chosen for that reason. Bastila explained as they walked toward the main structure. Force nexuses, locations where the Force naturally concentrates, have been traditional sites for Jedi training facilities for thousands of years. The enclave's entrance was partially collapsed, requiring them to climb over fallen stonework. Inside, sunlight streamed through gaps in the ceiling, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air like tiny stars. Despite the destruction evident everywhere, a sense of serenity lingered, an echo of the meditation and learning that had once filled these halls. The archives should be this way, Bastila said, leading them through a series of corridors where nature had begun reclaiming the built environment. Roots broke through floor tiles, and small flowering plants grew from cracks in the walls. They descended a spiral staircase into the lower levels where the damage was less extensive. The temperature dropped noticeably, and the ambient light faded, requiring Bastila to activate her lightsaber as an impromptu torch. The golden blade cast long shadows as they navigated the ancient hallways. The most valuable and sensitive archives were kept in shielded vaults, she explained as they approached a massive circular door embedded in the stone wall. Even Malak's bombardment couldn't reach them. Bastila placed her hand on a weathered panel beside the door, channeling the force into ancient circuitry. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low hum that seemed to emanate from deep within the structure, the circular door began to rotate, revealing a chamber beyond. The archive vault was surprisingly well preserved, a hexagonal room with walls lined by data storage units and holographic projectors. At the center stood a large crystalline structure pulsed with faint blue light despite having been without external power for years. A Noeticon, Bastila identified with reverence. A repository of knowledge created by ancient Jedi masters. They were thought to be lost technology. She approached the device cautiously. If it's still functional, it may contain the information we seek. As they neared the crystal structure, it responded to their presence. The faint illumination growing stronger. Geometric patterns appeared on its faceted surface, rearranging themselves in complex sequences before stabilizing into a coherent form. A hollow, graphic figure materialized above the Noeticon, an elderly human male in ornate robes unlike either Jedi or Sith designs Bastila had shown him. He carried a staff topped with a crystalline orb in one and wore a medallion that depicted the same spiral and blade symbol Naruto had seen in the ancient records. "Greetings, Seekers," the figure spoke in a language that should have been incomprehensible to Naruto. Yet he understood perfectly, as if the words bypassed normal hearing and registered directly in his mind. "I am the gatekeeper of this Noeticon of balance. What knowledge do you seek?" Bastila glanced at Naruto in surprise. "The language it's speaking, that's Hirakaten, extinct for millennia. How can you understand it?" "I don't know," Naruto admitted. "But I do, perfectly." He stepped forward, addressing the holographic figure directly. "We seek knowledge of the Sage of the Infinite Force and the dimensional barriers between worlds." The gatekeeper studied Naruto with expected intensity for an automated system. "Your energy signature is recognized. Permissions granted for restricted archives." The hologram shifted, displaying complex diagrams of intersecting planes and energy flows. The barriers between dimensions were established 27,453 standard years ago, following the Infinite Schism. What was the Infinite Schism? Bastila asked, her scholarly interest evident despite their urgent circumstances. The division of the unified cosmic energy into separate manifestations across dimensional planes, the gatekeeper explained. Before the schism, what you see the Force and what others name differently were a single energy field spanning all reality. The Sage of the Infinite Force maintained balance between opposing aspects of this energy. New images paired, historical scenes showing civilizations Naruto didn't recognize and technologies beyond even what he'd seen in this dimension. At the center of these images appeared a figure whose face remained obscured but whose presence dominated every scene. During the Infinite Empire's expansion, entities from beyond conventional space were encountered, the gatekeeper continued. One such entity, Voidus, the dimensional devourer, sought to consume the infinite force to expand its domain. The sage confronted Voidus but could not destroy an entity that existed simultaneously across all planes of reality. So instead, he split the dimensions, Naruto concluded, the knowledge rising within him from somewhere beyond conscious memory. Created barriers between worlds so that Voidus couldn't access the full spectrum of the infinite force. Correct, the gatekeeper confirmed. The sage used his own essence as the keystone of these barriers, dividing his consciousness across multiple dimensional planes. Each fragment of his awareness would eventually be reborn when the barriers required maintenance or when Voidus threatened to breach containment. The implications stunned both Naruto and Bastila into momentary silence. Finally, Naruto spoke, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. "You're saying I'm not just connected to this sage. I'm literally a fragment of him reborn. As are others across different dimensional planes." The gatekeeper added, "When united, these fragments can restore the sage's complete consciousness and power." Bastila's analytical mind quickly processed the strategic implications. "That's why Lord Voidus is pursuing you. If he captures or corrupts the sage's fragments before they can reunite naturally, he could control or destroy the dimensional barriers completely." Naruto finished grimly, "Consuming all realities as the gatekeeper described." The holographic figure nodded. "The current dimensional instability indicates Voidus has already begun this process. The barriers are weakening. Fracture points have appeared across multiple dimensions, allowing limited travel between previously separated realities. Like what brought me here," Naruto said. "And potentially others," Bastila added, a new concern in her voice. "If these fractures are appearing in multiple locations, other dimensional travelers may have arrived as well." The thought immediately sparked hope in Naruto. Hinata could have crossed through a different fracture point. Or agents of Voidus from other dimensions, Bastila cautioned, ever practical. "Gatekeeper, can these dimensional breaches be detected?" The holographic figure manipulated the displayed information, showing energy pattern recognition algorithms and detection methodologies. Dimensional FR. Actors emit distinct energy signatures detectable with proper calibration. The Noeticon contains specifications for modification of standard sensors. That would allow us to locate other fracture points, Bastila noted. Already mentally adapting the information to the Hawk's systems. But it doesn't address the fundamental problem of the weakening barriers. The barriers can only be reinforced by one who carries the sage's essence. Utilizing the cipher of infinite balance, the gatekeeper explained, displaying an intricate geometric pattern that seemed to shift between three-dimensional and higher-dimensional configurations. The complete cipher was divided and hidden across dimensional planes for safekeeping. "So I need to find these cipher fragments," Naruto surmised, while avoiding Voidus and his agents. "And locate other carriers of the sage's essence," Bastila added. The gatekeeper mentioned multiple fragments across dimensions. The holographic figure began to flicker, its energy apparently waning. "Warning. External approach detected. Multiple hostile signatures converging on this location." Bastila immediately accessed the security systems still functioning within the enclave, bringing up exterior sensor readings on a nearby console. They found us sooner than expected. At least 3 shuttles landing in the outer courtyard. Naruto moved to her side, studying the grainy images of black armored figures disembarking from the vessels. Same type as the shrine attackers, but more of them. And he pointed to a taller figure emerging from the central shuttle. "That one feels different, stronger. A dark side adept, possibly this Lord Voidus himself," Bastila suggested, her hand moving to her lightsaber. "We need to download whatever data we can from the Noeticon and find another way out. This vault has a secondary exit designed for emergencies." As Bastila worked to extract information from the ancient system, Naruto turned back to the flickering gatekeeper. "Is there anything else I need to know immediately? About my connection to the sage or how to access his abilities?" The holographic figure's voice grew fainter as its projection destabilized. "The sage's knowledge awakens through necessity and recognition. Trust the resonance between what you know and what you have forgotten. The first fragment of the cipher lies within the Temple of Twilight On." The gatekeeper's image dissolved into fragmentary data streams as the Noeticon's power finally failed. At the same moment, alarms sounded throughout the archive vault. "They've breached the upper levels," Bastila reported, pocketing a data crystal containing what information she'd managed to salvage. "The emergency exit leads to a series of caves that connect to the surface several kilometers from here. We need to move now." She pressed a sequence of panels on the far wall, revealing a narrow passage beyond. As they prepared to enter, the vault's main door began to glow red hot around its edges, clear evidence of cutting tools or energy weapons being applied from the other side. "They're trying to burn through," Naruto observed unnecessarily. How long will that door hold? Minutes at most, Bastila replied, gesturing him toward the escape tunnel. The passage is designed to collapse behind us once triggered. It should slow their pursuit. They entered the narrow corridor, illuminated only by emergency lighting strips that activated at their movement. Behind them, the hidden door slid shut, and a series of mechanical sounds indicated locking mechanisms engaging. The tunnel sloped downward, rough-hewn from the natural bedrock beneath the enclave. As they moved deeper, the ambient temperature dropped further, and the air took on the distinctive scent of underground water. The enclave was built above an extensive cave system, Bastila explained as they navigated the increasingly uneven terrain. These passages were used during the Mandalorian Wars to evacuate sensitive materials and personnel. A distant rumble echoed through the stone around them, whether from their pursuers breaching the vault or the promised collapse of the tunnel entrance, Naruto couldn't determine. Either way, urgency dictated their pace. After nearly 20 minutes of rapid progress through the winding passageway, they emerged into a vast underground cavern. Scent fungi provided minimal illumination, revealing a subterranean lake stretching into darkness. The water's surface reflected the bioluminescent ceiling, creating the illusion of stars above and below. "We need to cross," Bastila said, indicating a narrow stone bridge that spanned one section of the lake. "The exit to the surface is on the far side." As they started across the bridge, Naruto suddenly halted, his heightened senses detecting a disturbance in the force chakra field around them. "We're not alone." From the shadows ahead emerged three figures in the now familiar black armor, their masks gleaming in the dim phosphorescent light. Unlike the attackers at the shrine, these carried lightsabers, blood-red blades humming with malevolent energy. "Naruto Uzumaki," spoke the central figure. "Your arrival was foretold. Lord Voidus extends an invitation to join his grand vision for unified reality." Bastila's golden lightsaber ignited with a distinctive snap hiss. The Sith always disguise conquest as salvation. "Your unified reality means the destruction of all dimensions except the one Voidus controls." "Unification requires sacrifice," replied another figure, twirling a double-bladed lightsaber with practiced ease. "Those worthy will survive the convergence. Those unworthy will fuel it." Naruto assessed their opponents with the tactical eye of a veteran shinobi. They weren't ordinary soldiers but elite warriors trained in both lightsaber combat and force techniques. In the confined space of the bridge, their weapons gave them a strategic advantage. "Unless he changed the battlefield." "I appreciate the invitation," Naruto said, forming a familiar hand sign, "but I have prior commitments." Shadow clones appeared flanking the three attackers, forcing them to divide their attention. Simultaneously, Naruto created a Rasengan in his palm, but this time, he consciously attempted to merge his chakra technique with his growing awareness of the Force. The Rezu LT was the same hybrid sphere of energy he'd accidentally created during training, a Rasengan surrounded by extensions of pure Force energy that resembled a miniature sun. The technique illuminated the entire cavern with brilliant blue-white light. Force Rasengan, Naruto named it instinctively, the term rising from somewhere beyond conscious knowledge. The lead attacker visibly faltered at the sight. "The infinite spiral. It's true. He carries the sage's essence." Bastila seized the moment of hesitation, launching herself forward with force-enhanced speed. Her lightsaber technique was précis, and economical, clearly designed to disable rather than kill when possible. She engaged two opponents simultaneously, her single blade somehow keeping both at bay through superior positioning and timing. Naruto and his shadow clones confronted the leader. The force-enhanced Rasengan pulsed in his hand, responding to the ebb and flow of both energies within and around him. When he struck, the technique behaved differently than a standard Rasengan. Rather than grinding into its target with destructive rotation, it seemed to interface with the Force itself. The attacker's red lightsaber intercepted the technique. But instead of the expected explosive conflict of energies, something stranger occurred. The Force Rasengan seemed to temporarily neutralize the lightsaber's plasma blade, creating a window of vulnerability that Naruto's shadow clones immediately exploited. Working in perfect coordination, two clones disarmed the stunned warrior while the original Naruto pressed his advantage. The Force Rasengan connected with the attacker's chest armor, but instead of destroying it as a normal Rasengan would, the technique seemed to interface with the armor's force-attuned properties, CA. Using systemic failure of its integrated systems. The leader collapsed, his armor's power supply disrupted and his connection to the force temporarily scrambled by the unique properties of Naruto's hybrid technique. Bastila, meanwhile, had maneuvered her two opponents into disadvantageous positions, using the narrow bridge to limit their movement options. With a precisely timed force push, she sent one tumbling into the dark waters below. The remaining warrior, recognizing their tactical disadvantage, attempted to retreat. Reinforcements are already crossing the upper caverns, the warrior warned, backing away. You've only delayed the inevitable. Naruto's shadow clones pursued, herding the retreating figure toward Bastila, who executed a lightning-fast sequence of lightsaber strikes. That disabled the warrior's weapon arm without causing fatal injury. The attacker fell to one knee, defeated but defiant. Lord Voidus has foreseen this encounter, the warrior hissed through a damaged mask. Your resistance is a necessary component of his design. Each step you take draws you closer to fulfilling your role in the convergence. Naruto approached, the Force Rasengan still spinning in his palm, illuminating the fallen warrior's mask with harsh light. If your master is so confident in his predictions, why send forces to capture me at all? Why not let his grand design play out naturally? The warrior laughed, a harsh, mechanical sound through the mosque's filtration system. Because choice remains the one variable even Voidus cannot perfectly predict. Your nature as the sage's vessel makes you uniquely unpredictable. Bastila knelt beside the defeated figure, her lightsaber poised but not threatening. Where is the Temple of Twilight? What do you know of the cipher fragments? Surprise radiated from the warrior despite the concealing mask. You've accessed the Noeticon. Unexpected, but ultimately irrelevant. The temple has been under our control for months. Instant rumble echoed through the cavern, more immediate than before, accompanied by the sound of falling stone. We need to move, Naruto urged, dispelling the Force Rasengan and his remaining shadow clones. They're getting closer. Bastila rose fluidly to her feet. What about them? She asked, indicating the disabled leader and the defeated warrior. Leave them, Naruto decided after a moment's consideration. Killing defenseless opponents isn't my way, even enemies. They continued across the bridge, leaving the fallen warriors behind. The passage on the far side narrowed again, ascending through switchbacks carved into the natural rock. The sound of flowing water grew louder as they climbed, eventually revealing its source, a waterfall cascading down a shaft that paralleled their path, disappearing into the darkness below. The surface is close, Bastila said, her voice nearly drowned by the rushing water. This stream emerges from a spring about half a kilometer from here. As they neared the exit, sunlight became visible ahead, a bright circle growing larger with each step. They emerged onto a grassy hillside where the stream flowed peacefully through a meadow dotted with wildflowers. Under different circumstances, it would have been idyllic. Bastila immediately oriented herself, pointing toward a distant ridge. There's an old settlement beyond those hills, abandoned during the war but potentially still containing transportation we can use. The Hawk is compromised, we can't return there. Naruto scanned the horizon, noting a column of smoke rising from the direction of the Jedi Enclave. They're burning it, he observed grimly. Destroying whatever knowledge they could take. Standard Sith procedure, Bastila confirmed, her tone bitter with experience. Knowledge they can't control is knowledge they eliminate. She checked the data crystal retrieved from the Noeticon. At least we salvaged something. Once we reach safety, we can analyze what the gatekeeper provided. They set off across the open grassland, maintaining a steady pace that balanced speed with stealth. The rolling landscape provided some cover, but they remained vigilant for aerial surveillance or pursuit. As they walked, Naruto reflected on what they'd learned, about his connection to the sage, about the dimensional barriers, and about the entity called Voidus. The weight of his new responsibility settled uncomfortably upon shoulders already accustomed to bearing the fate of his village and world. Something's still bothering me, he said after they had been traveling for nearly an hour. If I'm carrying a fragment of this sage's essence, and there are others like me across different dimensions. You're wondering about your wife, Bastila surmised perceptively. Whether she might be another fragment. Naruto nodded. The gatekeeper mentioned fragments awakening when needed. Hinata and I were both at the shrine when the dimensional fracture occurred. What if that's not coincidence? It's possible, Bastila acknowledged. The Force, or the Infinite Force, as it seems we should call it, often works through connections that appear as coincidence to those unaware of its patterns. She glanced at him. What abilities does your wife possess that might align with this theory? The Byakugan, Naruto replied immediately. Eyes that can see chakra pathways, through solid objects. At great distances. It's a bloodline ability passed through her clan for generations. Bastila considered this. Enhanced perception would be a logical complementary ability to your more direct power. The sage would need both action and insight to maintain dimensional balance. The theory made intuitive sense, providing Naruto with renewed hope that not only might Hinata have survived the dimensional transition, but she might be integral to resolving the crisis they now faced. Their conversation paused as they crested a hill overlooking a small valley where the Promise D settlement lay, a cluster of stone buildings around a central courtyard, weathered but largely intact. No signs of occupation were visible, but both remained cautious as they approached. We should, Bastila began, then stopped abruptly, her hand moving to her lightsaber. Something's wrong. The Force feels disturbed. Naruto extended his senses, detecting the same anomaly, a strange fluctuation in the ambient energy field. Centered on the settlement ahead. It's similar to what I felt during the dimensional transition, but different somehow. More controlled. They advanced more cautiously now, using the terrain for cover. As they neared the settlement's perimeter, the disturbance intensified, a pulsing, rhythmic distortion in the Force chakra field that made Naruto's skin prickle with recognition. The central courtyard came into view, revealing the source of the disturbance, a device unlike anything Naruto had seen in either dimension. Crystalline components arranged in geometric patterns surrounded a central pillar of pulsing energy that seemed to bend light around it. Black armored technicians worked at control panels while guards maintained a perimeter. That's not Sith technology, Bastila whispered as they observed from behind a crumbling wall. At least not any I've encountered. It reminds me of the shrine where this all started, Naruto replied quietly. Similar energy signature, but more refined. Quote, as they watched, the central pilar's pulsations intensified. The air above the device seemed to tear, creating a rift of swirling energy that gradually expanded. Through this dimensional window, Naruto glimpsed another world. Not his own, but somewhere equally unfamiliar. Strange structures of impossible geometry were visible beyond the portal. There, creating artificial dimensional fractures, Bastila realized, horrified. Deliberately weakening the barriers. Test sequence complete, announced one of the technicians. Dimensional coordinates locked. Preparing for extraction protocol. Quote, the guards moved into formation around the device, weapons raised toward the portal as if expecting something, or someone, to emerge. The rift expanded further, now large enough for a person to step through. A figure appeared in the dimensional doorway, humanoid but clearly not human, with orange-red skin, white facial markings, and head-tails instead of hair. She wore fitted armor of unfamiliar design and carried two lightsaber hilts. Most striking were her eyes, fierce, determined, and unmistakably aware of her dangerous situation. Togruta, Bastila identified in a whisper. But not like any I've seen. Her Force signature is extraordinarily powerful. The guards surrounding the portal raised their weapons. Subject identified, called their leader. Ahsoka Tano. Proceed into containment field for processing. The Togruta woman, Ahsoka, surveyed her reception committee with obvious wariness. Her posture suggested both combat readiness and tactical assessment. I'm guessing this isn't a friendly welcome committee, she said, her voice carrying clearly across the courtyard. Resistance is inadvisable, the guard leader responded. Lord Voidus requires your cooperation. Come willingly and avoid unnecessary suffering. Ahsoka's expression hardened. I've heard similar offers before. They never end well for people like me. In a single fluid motion, she ignited both lightsabers, revealing blades of pure white light, unlike either Bastila's gold or the Sith's crimson. Naruto felt an immediate and inexplicable connection to this strange a resonance in the Force chakra field that reminded him of what he'd experienced with Bastila, but with a different quality. Without conscious decision, he rose from their hiding place. I think we Just found another fragment of the sage, he said to Bastila's startled expression. Then, before she could respond, he created a dozen shadow clones and launched himself into the courtyard. The guards reacted immediately, opening fire with energy weapons that Naruto's clones dodged with practiced ease. The original Naruto landed beside Ahsoka, whose surprise at his sudden appearance was quickly masked by combat focus. "I don't know who you are," she said, deflecting energy bolts with her white lightsabers, "but your timing is excellent." "Naruto Uzumaki," he introduced himself, forming a Rasengan in each hand. "And I think we might be connected in ways neither of us fully understands yet." Bastila joined them a moment later, her golden lightsaber adding to their defensive perimeter. Quote, "This discussion might be better continued after we're not surrounded by hostile forces," she suggested dryly. Ahsoka's eyes widened slightly at Bastila's appearance. "A Jedi. That's unexpected." "Formerly Jedi," Bastila corrected, executing a precise series of deflections that sent energy bolts back toward their sources. "It's complicated." "It always is," Ahsoka replied with a hint of ironic understanding. She glanced at the dimensional portal still swirling behind them. "That's our exit strategy. My scanners detected it connecting multiple dimensional planes before I was pulled through." Naruto studied the device generating the portal while his shadow clones engaged the guards. "Can we control where it sends us?" "Theoretically," Bastila replied, gesturing toward the control panels. "If we can secure the area long enough to understand the interface." Ahsoka moved with incredible speed and grace, her dual lightsabers creating a defensive screen while she advanced toward the nearest technicians. "I suggest we find out quickly. My experience with portals suggests they rarely stay stable for long." Working together, Naruto's shadow clones providing diversion, Bastila and Ahsoka clearing a path with their lightsabers, they fought their way to the control station. The technicians fled rather than engaging, clearly unprepared for direct combat. Bastila immediately began analyzing the controls, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The interface combines elements I recognize with completely alien technology. It seems to be mapping dimensional coordinates based on energy signatures. Can you set it to find my home dimension?" Naruto asked, maintaining a defensive position with his remaining clones. "Possibly, but not with precision," Bastila replied, manipulating the controls. "I can program it to seek energy patterns similar to your unique signature, but that's the best I can do without more time." A new alarm sounded from beyond the settlement's perimeter. Ahsoka glanced up from where she'd been studying the portal's structure. "We've got incoming. Multiple air signatures approaching fast." "The reinforcements," Naruto realized. "We're out of time." Bastila made a final adjustment to the controls. "It's set to seek compatible dimensional resonance patterns. That's the best I can do." The portal's energy fluctuated, its swirling patterns shifting various configurations before stabilizing on a new pattern. Through the dimensional window, Naruto glimpsed an unfamiliar landscape, a forest unlike any in the Five Nations, yet something about it triggered that same sense of forgotten familiarity. "That's not my world," he said, "but it feels connected somehow." "Another fragment of the sage might be there," Ahsoka suggested, deflecting. "A new barrage of fire as the first reinforcements arrived. Which makes it our best option right now." Bastila finished a final sequence on the control panel, then stepped back. "I've programmed a destabilization sequence. The portal will collapse shortly after we pass through, preventing immediate pursuit." The three exchanged a brief glance, strangers united by circumstance and cosmic connection. About to leap into yet another unknown dimension, Naruto thought of Hinata, wondering if this new path would lead him closer to her or further away. But the resonance he felt toward this portal, and toward these two women with their lightsabers and force abilities, suggested this was the necessary next step in understanding his role as the sage's vessel. "Together," he said simply. As enemy fire intensified around them and the device began emitting warning signals of imminent collapse, they moved as one toward the dimensional doorway. Naruto dispersed his remaining shadow clones, gathering their accumulated knowledge and experience. Bastila and Ahsoka deactivated their lightsabers simultaneously, exchanging a look of wary assessment and grudging respect. The dimensional portal enveloped them in swirling energy, pulling them through the barriers between worlds. As Naruto felt reality shift around him once more, he held to a single certainty, that with each step, each world, each new companion, he moved closer to understanding the legacy awakening within him. The legacy of the Sage of the Infinite Force, whose power alone could prevent the collapse of all dimensions into the consuming void. Chapter 2 End. The End. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.